Okay, and Stephen K. Peeples here, and joining me right now is Southern California-based singer, songwriter, composer, guitarist, producer, and band leader Steve Postell. Did I leave anything out?
Basketball player. No.
Okay, all right, good. Among other credits, Steve composed music for Dying to Know, the 2014 documentary about Timothy Leary and Dr. Richard Alpert, aka Ram Dass. Steve's been a collaborator and a performer with David Crosby, and he co-founded the Immediate Family with fellow session aces Danny Kortchmar, Russ Kunkel, Lee Sklar, and Waddy Wachtel. And right now, Steve has a new album of originals out titled Walking Through These Blues. And he's on the road fronting the band Our House, performing classics from the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young catalog. So, welcome, Steve. Thanks for being with us.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, before we get into Our House and the new album, I'm kind of dying to know what your experience was working on the film documentary about Tim Leary and Ram Dass.
Well, when I got involved, Timothy had passed away. The film became the genesis of the film was that when Timothy received the sad news that he was dying, mutual friends got him and Ram Dass or Richard Alpert as together because they hadn't seen each other many, many years, and they felt, you guys started this whole trajectory together. And another friend of mine and they said, we need to film this meeting. And they filmed the meeting, my friend Alan Kozlowski, and then, which was like an hour. And that turned into, hey guys, we need to make a documentary. So it took 15 years or so to get it from this meeting that they filmed of the last time the two of them talked to a full-fledged documentary. And so by the time I got involved, we was still in the editing phase. We got Robert Redford to narrate it and help tidy it up. He really gave some great feedback. It was, I mean, I love scoring. This was a fun one because we started with some old black and white footage of them when they were at Harvard together in the 50s
Oh, nice.
and all the eras. The director wanted me to write music that coincided with whatever era we were showing. So I wrote psychedelic stuff for the LSD trips and 50s bebop so I wrote all these different kinds of music and sequences under the sort of pseudo LSD visuals, and it was just really I love scoring. I don't get to do it a lot, but because I'm pretty busy, but when I do, it's a lot of fun. And it's a very fascinating story that a lot of people don't know.
Well, I think that kind of informs most of your work. There's a visual aspect to your songwriting that I think is kind of unique to you and gives your songs a little bit more depth, I think.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, that's the tradition that I come from, is storytelling, songwriting. And the best of that was very cinematic, I feel, and visual. Um, so that's definitely in my DNA, my musical DNA, and it's just what I gravitate towards.
Well, the the intersection between music and film is fascinating to me, and soundtracks, and anyone who is able to work in both of those universes, orbit in both of those universes, is someone that I'm very interested to speak with. So,
I love that in the film, the thing, songwriting is a very um, contained art form, 3 minutes to 6 minutes, and you gotta say your piece. And it's got form and it has a chorus and it has not every song, but most songs. But scoring is like the director will say, okay, I want music from here to here. So you got a minute and 28 seconds to write something that compels the visual with something underneath it, some music. So it's a very free form,
yes.
expression, and I've always loved film. So I enjoy that, and I enjoy the freedom of not being in song form all the time.
Yeah, it's very liberating, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Well, so tell me how you and David Crosby connected. What's that story? That's got to be a good one.
Well, we first connected almost 30 years ago, I think. I think it was 97. Um, he put together a new project with his newly discovered son, James Raymond, who turns out to be a brilliant musician, and Jeffrey Pivar, the guitar player, and they called it CPR.
Right.
They made a couple really nice records, but this was before they'd made a record. And I knew Jeff for many, many years from New York City. And Jeff called me and said, I'm in town with David Crosby and his son James, and we need a place to write for a couple of days. I had a recording studio. And I said, oh, I get to have David Crosby in my room for 2 days? Absolutely. So that's when I met David. And then just kept crossing paths over the years between my friendship that developed with James and my friendship with Jeff, and I'd go to shows, and then eventually we wrote together, and eventually we played some shows together, and finally, after all those years, and would sometimes just go to dinner or lunch. It was just a really nice rapport we had, and we finally decided to uh, that uh, as his he had surgery on his hand. He didn't feel that he was really going to be able to get through a 2 hour concert guitar wise anymore, and I, in my own humble way, said, "Well, let me play the guitar parts."
I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah, so he took me up on it. I learned the stuff, and we were knee deep in rehearsals and put a band together, and we were going to go on the road. And really out of the blue, I think maybe 4 weeks before the first show, David passed away.
And that fateful date was January 18th, 2023.
Yep, and I think February 18th-ish was the. I got to find out what that was. I think that was the first date of the tour.
I remember that there was promo already out with tour dates listed and
Yeah.
tickets were on sale and so forth. It was a happening thing.
As a matter of fact, it was sold out, and we sold out in 3 hours. So about 6 or 7 months later, James and I, we'd been planning to do it, but we did a wonderful tribute concert at the same place, the Libero Theater in Santa Barbara. Everyone who had a ticket for the first one, you're invited to come. And we had Sean Colvin, Colin Hay, Richard Page, Chris Stills, and a few other guests. And the same band that Crosby had picked. And we basically played the same show that we were going to play 8 months or 7 months earlier. And that's what led to ultimately to this tour that I'm doing.
Right, right. Let's so and where did the immediate family genesis come in during this?
Well, immediate family in certain ways was kind of a long time coming in that the other four guys knew each other for 50 years. I knew some of them for over 20, but individually working on this, that, and the other thing together. And then I met Danny at the first Troubadour Union show at the Troubadour with Carole King.
Hmm.
James Taylor and Carole King got together to for their maybe it was the 50th anniversary of that show that they had done. I think sounds right.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Um, and the guy who was recording it was Nathaniel Kunkel, who was mixing my record at the time. So Nathaniel invited me. Nathaniel is Russ's son,
Right.
and I knew the other four guys. I knew the other guys in the immediate family. I'd never met Danny, and I met him that night, and we hit it off, and we started to when he would come to LA, we get together, we started doing some gigs together and writing songs, and and ultimately we actually put a band together and went to Japan with a different band. It was Danny and me and two of Jackson Brown's band members, Bob Glaub on bass and the late wonderful Jeff Young on keys and vocals. I had Steve Hawley from Wings on drums, and we did a really nice run in Japan. And while there, Danny solidified a record deal with a Japanese label, and the concept of the record was, Dan, we want you to sing all your hits your way, which meant he would do Somebody's Baby and New York Minute and Dirty Laundry and etc. And we got back to LA and we right the studio where you're looking. We came in here and spent a month kind of coming up with the arrangements and how we would do it. And then he called Waddy Wachtel and Russ Kunkel and Leland Sklar, his best friends and oldest musical friends, and said, I'm doing this record. You guys, can we find a weekend we're all free? And as he says, it was kind of amazing that all of us could be free on the same weekend. And it's funny, we did the first day without Waddy because he was still out with Stevie Nicks, and then he ran in the second day and joined us. But so that's how it started. And Danny looked around the second day and went, "Wow, this is my immediate family." He just kind of blurted it out, and we made the record. We had some great guests. Crosby sings on it, James Taylor, Jackson, Michael McDonald. But it wasn't an immediate family record. It was a Danny Kortchmar record. But
Right.
then, because he'd given us a name, he said Danny Kortchmar and the immediate family, and then we were off and running. That's the origin story.
Gotcha. Well, back to Crosby. I'm wearing my Sky Trails t-shirt here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The what records did you work on Sky Trails, or you were on that tour, right?
No, no. That's why that was the big disappointment. Is we had played individual shows like a benefit here or a festival there, and we'd recorded together, but I never toured with him, and that's what I was really looking
Yeah,
forward.
because we saw him during the Sky Trails tour at the Saban in Beverly Hills, and I wasn't sure if you were with the band at the time or not, but
I probably was there, actually.
yeah,
I was there. Yeah.
very good. Well, so the back to the immediate family. Jumping back, I'm sorry, I'm skipping around, but you guys did a documentary film, and that's created quite a stir on the film festival circuit, and I think it's about to be released, isn't it? What's this?
Oh,
What's the?
that's out. That's already
It's out. Okay.
out. It's on it's on Hulu. It's on Amazon Prime, and I think that's the poster for it back right there. Uh,
Gotcha.
and it's a really great documentary. I mean, because the as musicians, we all know the history of these guys, but your average music listener doesn't, and this really spotlights them in a way that they deserve to be, and I'm happy to be part of it. But it's really about this history, and we got to interview. We, the director, interviewed James Taylor and Jackson Brown, Carole King, uh, Linda Ronstadt, Neil Young, Keith Richards, Don Henley. They all agreed because these musicians were important to all of their careers.
Right.
So it's a really pretty expansive history of that era of music and these guys who played on thousands of those records.
Well, it was put together by the same guys who did the Wrecking Crew
Yeah.
documentary, right? And
Denny Tedesco, who's Tommy Tedesco's son.
right,
Tommy was one of the great first guitar session players.
right. And in a very real sense, the guys in the immediate family were kind of represented the next generation of Wrecking Crew.
Well, that's why I think Danny was having lunch with this publicist and with Denny. I forget exactly the moment it happened, but it was presented to Denny Tedesco was trying to figure out what his next film should be. And they said, there's this band now called The Immediate Family, and it's these guys. And for him, it was, oh, the light bulb went off. Like, that's what happened after the Wrecking Crew. It was these guys.
Boink.
Yeah.
Great. Well, definitely need to go check that out. So, tell us how the uh, Our House Music of CSNY lineup came together.
Well, the concept happened after we did that tribute to David at Libero,
Right.
and it sold out in 3 hours. It was a huge success as a night, as a one night thing, and I got approached by a number of agents after that, saying, "This is so great, you really should take it on the road." And we did. We did a tour, and then we put another one together, which starts in a week. Well, we already started it, taking a week off and then go back out. And for this tour, it changes each time. But for this one, my friend Jeff Pevar and I, now Jeff Pevar played with David or David and Graham or CSN for 28 years, something like that, 27 years.
I think I just saw Jeff playing in that Santa Monica High School concert that was recently released that they brought out from the archives after David passed. That's on YouTube. It's really good.
Yeah, could
I,
be.
anyway, go ahead. So you and
So anyway, so he and I kind of took the reins, partly because both of us, I mean, him many more years than me, but we both learned at the feet of particularly David. Um, David showed me all the tunings and how he played the songs, and Jeff was with so many iterations of that group of people. So for us, the challenge is just to recreate the music, not copy it, but to recreate it where in an authentic way, and to get musicians and singers who bring their own passion to it. So like we have Chris Pierce, who's an incredible singer, songwriter in his own right, and
yeah, he opened for Neil on Neil's tour a couple of years ago and just
he did.
knocked everybody out.
Yeah, yeah, he's terrific. And then we have Teresa James, who has many years a blues band called Teresa James and the Rhythm Tramps.
They were on my TV show here in Santa Clarita in 2012, 2011-ish.
So the four of us are sort of fronting the band, and great bass player, great drummers, and we just
Who's
we
the drummer and bass player?
bass player's a guy named Ted Russell Camp. Ted played with Shooter Jennings and a bunch of people. Great player. The drummer, we have a few. We're rotating drummers, so um, just out of necessity, because the normal drummer who played with Cross and CSNY for years is handling a family situation, so he's not on this. So we are filling in with different guys.
So who was at the Libero on April 2nd?
That was Clint DeGannon from New York City.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. Very good. So the Libero was April 2nd. That was the first date on the tour, which is at this point scheduled through early May and is going to wrap up in Florida.
Yeah.
But, how do you think the first gig went after 2 days of rehearsal? That was pretty amazing.
We did 3 days, Jeff
3 days.
exactly.
Okay.
If given that, there's always, I thought the next night we did even better, because um, it takes a while. Back in the old, now the cars are made so that the minute you turn it on, you can go drive fast. Back in the old days, you had to, when you got a new car, you couldn't drive over 45 for the first few days and then over 50.
Got to break it in.
And that's kind of how a new band or a new tour is like, as far as I'm concerned. It continues to get better. At a certain point, it locks in where it becomes very second nature, and you're not thinking about anything. You're just inside the music. So, yeah, no, given that it was new, I thought it went great. But it was that much more comfortable the next night, and will continue to be that.
Yeah, I think just from a quick observer standpoint, I think instrumentally you guys had it pretty well nailed. Vocally, you got to work on it a little bit more, but that's just as you said.
That was just because Teresa had just come off the laryngitis.
Yeah, and she hit some pretty big notes
Yeah. So, yeah.
considering.
So that's just a matter of that she had to hold back a little bit, but we've got the parts down. It's just, and she'll be fine in a week when we go back out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, now and the Libero show was introduced by a video clip.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, Henry Diltz, who's a household name for us musicians, is one of the great legendary rock and roll photographers, and he took the many record covers, but particularly the Crosby, Stills, Nash and the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young record covers. And he's become a friend. He took a lot of pictures of the immediate family and knew Crosby for all those years. He knew everybody, all those guys. So sometimes he actually comes in person and introduces the band, and if he's around. But we have him on film, and we didn't do it at Libero, but we are working on a video presentation that'll go behind the band, which intersperses many of his iconic photographs.
That would be great. And a Henry slideshow behind you guys would be fabulous.
Yeah, we have it. It wasn't quite ready for the other night.
Gotcha. Well, Henry and I go back a long way also. He shot our wedding in 1981.
Wow.
So another FOH, friend of Henry. So let's jump to the new album, Walking Through These Blues. How long ago did you start that? I mean, there are performances on it that date back a few years. So, kind of give us the arc of how this album was created.
I do albums generally starting in the early 90s when I have enough songs. When I have 12 to 15 songs that I like, I start recording. And I've had my own studio that whole time. So I don't need to book a studio, I don't need to raise money, whether I have a record label, which sometimes I do, and now I do, but sometimes I don't. I still, hey, it's time. I got the songs, time to make a record. So that time had come. I had the songs, and I started to record, and I was probably almost 3/4 of the way or more done when COVID hit.
Whoa.
And I made the decision with my management team that for someone like me, was meaning not a household name, if I can't go play, why put out a record? It's a waste of time to, the visibility for someone like me is doing interviews like this and going and playing.
Right.
And so we held it back. We did release a version of it in Japan because I wasn't going to go there anyway. So, and they knew me from immediate family. But so I got to keep working on it, which was really cool. I got to keep refining it. And then when the first kind of break in the COVID storm hit and people started going back out, right at that time, immediate family put out another record. And so that was an inopportune time for me to do it. I don't want to compete with myself in that way. So we held on to it some more. And right now we're in between immediate family records. The next one I'll start to mix in a month or so. So the timing was just really right. I got to add more. I even pretty recently wrote a song with Glenn Phillips, who's the lead singer of Toe the Wet Sprocket. And that got to be on the record, which if I'd have released it back then, it never would have been. And it's one of my favorite songs on the record. So
yeah. Well, okay. So I was making some random notes as I was listening to the record, and just I wrote thoughtful, insightful lyrics, relatable stories, advanced guitar work, creative arrangements and changes, uncluttered production.
It's a good review in my book. Thank you. Well, all of those are things that I care about and strive to achieve. The writing is consider myself a storyteller in the tradition of storytelling songs, and so I try to, whether it's a bit esoteric in some imagery and sometimes more direct, I still try to create a landscape for some sort of story. Um, the because of the work I do and who I know, the playing is the best, in my opinion, the best musicians in the world. So I get a kick out of playing with my friends who are so great.
Well, I was going to say you have a really, really deep bench of players to draw from, depending on what the song calls for. And that's really, and as a producer and knowing these guys, you can really kind of strategically pick just the right people that you
Exactly.
think are going to get your message across in the way that you hear it in your head.
Particularly because this record had no particular timeline. Like there wasn't a deadline. So I could wait. So like Crosby was busy when I started, but when he got him off the road, he came and sang on the song. And Greg Lease, I heard his beautiful pedal steel. I could hear it on a song. He was out with Jackson when they came off the road. So I had this leisure of hearing who I might want, who might be appropriate for a given song, and waiting till they were available. Whereas if you have 2 weeks to make a record, just say who's in town, you know,
Right, right. Whoever's handy is on the record and everybody else is not.
kind of.
So tell me about the Crosby session. I mean, what was it like having him sing on your record after having worked with him in the past? It was kind of a full circle thing in a way.
Yeah, I think he sang on my last record as well
Yeah,
for this. Well, the, he's one of those people. Now, this is a bit of a dying thing that a lot of, I'm not trying to sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but a lot of young singers all sound the same. Like the girls all sound like this, and the guys all sound like, that's just sort of, but back in the day, the opposite was true.
right.
Not only did the record companies didn't want two people who sounded the same. Like one label, well, they've got Dylan, we don't want another Dylan, we want something else. And so it promoted the idea of being an individual artistically. And no one was more of that than David. And his voice was just a force of nature. I mean, right up until literally the rehearsal we had 3 days before he passed away. The guy was like an uncanny singer, both in the power of it, in the tonality, um, the expression. So I wrote this song when the lights go out, and I just instantly heard his voice on it, and as soon as he started singing, it was like, yeah, that's what I heard and more.
Well, we miss him.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, I miss. Oh, there you go.
One of my all-time favorite albums.
Yep. No.
And Henry actually signed this, but
Oh, that's nice.
most of those are his photos, including this very famous one of
Yep.
Oz with the
Yeah, he tells a story of that. I do have that on film where he was doing a shoot, and I think Henry found that little thing and just threw it to Crosby, and Crosby just went like that. It just sort of happened.
yeah.
American flag gun to his head. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I miss the musical camaraderie, which especially that we didn't get to tour with this newest project. But I just like going to his house and having lunch. I just liked. He was a mentor, bit of a father figure to me in a way,
Hmm.
and he's very missed. Yeah.
Well, so how do folks find out more about you, Steve, in our house and walking through the blues? What are the best ways to do?
Well, let's take it one at a time. The Our House tour is on something called Bands in Town / Our House. All the tour dates are there.
Okay.
If you're on Facebook, I post all this stuff on Facebook as well. Um, the record is out on Quarto Valley Records, Quarto Quarto Valley Records. So it's on their website. I do have a website which is in dire need of being repaired, but I can't do it until I get off this tour. So it'll all that will be there on that information. There's a so
And that's that,
stevepostell.com will be a viable site again. I mean, it's there. You can see stuff, but it's not up to date.
yeah, definitely is in need of an update. And then immediate family, how do folks find out more about immediate family?
I mean, and all of us are on Facebook as well. Immediate Family has a website, immediatefamilyband.com. Um, we made a record, finished recording, it's not mixed, of us doing all the hits that these guys wrote or produced. So it's really a fun record. So it's
Well,
got,
give us a preview. We have a few minutes left. So when's that due, and what's going to be on it?
oh, it's, it's Werewolves in London, Lawyers, Guns and Money, Somebody's Baby, New York Minute, Dirty Laundry, Honey Don't Leave LA. It's all those songs. Shaky Town.
Wow.
Uh, it's 11 songs that were all pretty prominent songs for the guys that they either wrote for, produced for, whatever. That we've been touring, so we have our versions of them. So
Right.
that's recorded. When I get off the tour, I'll take the recordings and start to prepare them, and then Waddy and Nico Bolas and I will get on to mixing it, and then we'll release it.
Well, sounds like you have a busy year ahead of you there, Steve.
I prefer being busy to sitting around and figuring out what to do with myself.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, thanks again for spending some time with us and giving us the update on all of your projects. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk again.
Take care.